Hey bestie, it's time for your next session of Real Talk Friend Therapy with your favorite big sister auntie queen, Daysha Veronica. Hello, y'all. Welcome back. I am so happy that y'all are loving the podcast so far. The love and support has been so real, and it is very deeply appreciated. I've gotten some really beautiful messages from people about how excited they are to have this space to work on building their self-confidence and to motivate them to get out there and make new friends. So if you're loving the podcast, please feel free to either leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening, or you can even screenshot yourself listening and you can share it with me on Instagram or Twitter or Threads. I just hopped on Threads. And then don't forget, there is a free Facebook community that you can join to keep the conversation going on your favorite episodes. And then there's also a Patreon subscription that in the future will feature exclusive bonus content, private chats, and more. Okay, first of all, I have to acknowledge I am dog sitting right now. The beautiful Pumpkin, who's owned by one of my best friends. And so you might hear some chewing in the background. Normally I would be in my office recording, but I just, I want to keep an eye on the doggies. Pumpkin has very strong feelings for Harlow, so I just want to keep my eye on everybody. Y'all, my dog, he's too cute for his own good. Let me tell you, this dog has a harem of dogs that just are obsessed with him, and humans included. Oh, he hears me talking, so he's walking over to me right now. But the other thing is, I might be speaking in a little bit more of a lower/whisper register because my throat has been killing me the past couple of days. And so that's actually why I was not able to drop an episode last week, in addition to having my beautiful, amazing friends from high school, my own high school besties, coming to stay with me for a week. So there was a lot going on, and I apologize for not being able to have an episode out for you guys last week. My goal is to drop at least once a week, and so this week, y'all are in luck. You're gonna get 2 episodes this week, woo woo, to make up for last week. But yes, so I also might be taking some drinking breaks more often this time as well. All right, so for this week's episode, this is part of what I'm calling Better You, Better Friend, which will be a recurring series that focuses on tools, exercises, and personal stories that are meant to help you become a better friend by becoming a better version of yourself. Y'all, I don't know. Pumpkin is just so passionately chewing on this toy right now, and I love that for her. Okay, so a key tool that I like to use when getting real with myself and my friendships, albeit off and on, is meditation. Now, for some people, they hear the word meditation and all they can think is crunchy granola, social media, influencer buzzword. And I 1,000% feel that sentiment hard. Other things I've heard people say about meditation is stuff like, I can't turn my mind off, so it'll never work for me. I don't think I'm doing it right. It's basically a glorified nap. I think people are lying about feeling anything from it. It's boring, and so many more things. And I totally understand why people feel this way. When I tried to start meditating at first, I agree that it was so hard to turn my mind off. I first tried it when also doing a yoga class. I feel like often in yoga, especially when you're doing the lying down pose that I cannot remember the name for, I feel like meditation and yoga just tend to go hand in hand. But as I mentioned in the last episode, I've gone to a psychic in the past who, whenever I saw her, she would always mention that there was a person close to me who was very jealous of me, and I needed to be careful about what I shared with people. And y'all, this always bothered me because I'm a fairly private person to begin with. I'm a Scorpio rising, for anyone who knows what that means, and I'm an an empath. So if you're not into astrology or psychology or any of that, all this means is that I don't like to share anything with anyone until I've fully processed it, which can come off as me being secretive and withholding. But like, I can't tell you as a writer, like if people are standing behind me and like trying to watch what I'm doing, like I hate in progress reports at work. I'm like, just let me show you the full thing so you get the whole thing. Anyway, but it also means that I'm the empathic side means that I'm very sensitive to others' feelings and emotional states. And so I would say I would see her about once every 6 months to a year, or whenever I felt a little lost in life. And when this started to become a recurring message from her, it drove me mad. Okay, so now we're gonna jump to 2018. I just broke up with my boyfriend, just quit my job 6 months earlier, and I had started Yes Queen. So I was in this extremely insecure place, and I went to go see her. And in addition to her telling me that I wasn't living up to my full potential because I felt jaded and cheated during my time at BuzzFeed, which is like, that's a whole other episode for another day. She told me that there was this jealous person in my life and that I had an extremely blocked throat chakra, which meant that I was swallowing a lot of my feelings instead of expressing them. I am dead. Pumpkin is living her best life with this toy over here. She's just all up in Harlow's toy bag. I can't. I love this for her. I love a girl that just lives her life to the fullest. Okay, so when I tell y'all, I started sobbing in the middle of Venice Beach as this woman was reading me for filth, like just telling me every single thing that I was feeling and like refused to acknowledge. So I decided I wanted to work with her a little more closely just to figure out how I could free myself of these dark feelings. And one of the things she wanted me to do was meditate. And I was like, I've tried it. It doesn't really work for me. And she said, okay, what I want you to do is go home, dry yourself a hot bath, put sea salt in there. And she put a very strong emphasis on sea salt and not like the iodized like kitchen salt. And then she gave me an amethyst crystal and told me to put it in there with me. And so for those of you who are not familiar with crystal work, amethyst is a crystal that's all about bringing peace and serenity into your life. And then when you look at chakra colors, you'll see that purple and violet, which is the color of amethyst, that purple violet color it represents your crown chakra. And chakras, just to offer a quick working definition of what it means, are energy centers that we have along our spine that correspond to different aspects of our physical and emotional well-being. Now, there are 7 main ones that people commonly talk about, but the deeper you get in the study of them, you'll find that people believe that there are many, many more. I think an article I was reading said that some people believe there are up to 114 chakras. So your crown chakra is at the top of your head, and it represents your spiritual connection to yourself, others, and the universe. And it's also believed to be an energy center that you can use to heighten your sense of intuition. And it's funny now because when she was telling me to do all this stuff, it felt like that moment. I don't know if anyone has watched Kenan and Kel, super 90s baby here. And at the end of every Kenan and Kel episode, there's this moment. Pumpkin. Pumpkin, do you need help? Okay, so there's this moment at the end of every Kenan and Kel episode where Kenan gives Kel this crazy list of stuff for their next adventure. And Kel is just like, what the fuck are we doing with this? Like, what are we doing here? Like, why you got me going to get a chicken and a bucket of ice and 3 gallons of glue? You know, like, what are we doing? And so that's how it felt in that moment. But now, in hindsight, after deepening my understanding of chakras and crystals, I'm like, oh, I see what you was doing there. And to help give you insight, everything she told me to do was like part of a recipe to help me neutralize my negativity. so that I could strengthen my intuition and figure out who the hell this person was in my life. So again, amethyst is really great for peace and serenity. Salt is a great neutralizer. And I'm trying to remember what else. You know what, y'all? Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go help Pumpkin make sure that she has what she needs. 1 second. All right, and we are back. Y'all will not believe, like, Pumpkin literally ate one of my dog's toys. It is... I am just like so dead. Pumpkin is a little pit bull mix, and she's a very sweet girl, but like girl has jaw strength, okay? And then I think I mentioned earlier, she has a very big crush on my dog, and she was trying to hump him. It was just, there was a lot going on. So everybody got a little bit of peanut butter and some sleepy stuff, and now they're knocked out. So you might hear Pumpkin snoring in the background. This is this is Pumpkin's episode, everybody. But going back to the story, I can totally understand how the idea of crystals and chakras and all this stuff can seem really woo-woo for my left-brain folks. I get it. And to be honest, I would actually classify myself as an open skeptic, meaning I'm willing to go along for the ride just to see what happens. And if it feels wrong or I feel like I'm being manipulated, then I'm out. But at the same time, I also believe that just because we can't fully understand something doesn't mean that it can't be real. So as always, take from this what works for you and leave the rest. That's always my mantra. But anyway, after I did the bath, she told me the next day to open up as many windows as I could, to find a spot with natural light, turn off all my distractions, so put on my do not disturb, make sure I couldn't get any texts or calls, and to just sit with myself for like 10 minutes. And since I'm a writer, this time I decided to write down what was coming to mind for me. And for whatever reason, I was like thinking back to this moment, and I don't know, because again, I can be very critical, and grad school is actually a place where I feel like I really worked on self-censoring. But in this moment, I told myself that I'm not going to censor myself or try to make sense out of what I'm writing. I'm writing out everything, if it's names or sentences or phrases, and if it just keeps coming up, I just keep writing it down. Like, no matter how repetitive it might look on the page, I'm just writing everything. So I followed her instructions and I wrote down what was coming up for me, and y'all, I can't even begin to describe for you how revealing this way of doing meditation was for me. And I could literally see the ways in which people or certain decisions that I wasn't dealing with were making it so hard for me to have peace in my life. Like, the amount of space they were taking up on the page, it was like it was a literal representation of my mind, which is actually why I think the repetition part can be so powerful. And I highly recommend it, because seeing how much space either certain decisions or people or events were taking up in my mind on the page started to make me angry. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm spending so much time thinking about this person and this thing. And this time that I'm spending on them could be time that I spend on something else that I really care about. And I'm giving it to them. So now the way I like to think about meditation is that it is my divine right to have peace in my life. And I know as women, we like to believe that's not true and that we should be at everybody's beck and call, but I am here to tell you, you have a divine right to peace, okay? Going off on a little tangent here, but I will never forget. So there was a podcast that, I think it was some radio station in Chicago. They did a profile on Oprah's life and, you know, how she became Oprah. I literally believe it was called Making Oprah. And the podcast talked about this episode on the Oprah Winfrey Show in which Oprah was trying to tell the women in the audience that they could put themselves first, and the women booed her. The women in the audience booed her. I will never forget this. And like, luckily, I think for millennials and Gen Z women, we're are getting better about putting ourselves first. But anyway, I will never forget this. And so I really, really, really just want to solidify that, like, women especially, you have such a deep divine right to peace. And what peace looks like is different for every person, but whatever it is for you, it is your divine right to have that. And so if I don't feel peaceful, my question is, why is that? And what am I willing to do to achieve my divine right? I've recently been listening to Brooke Castillo, who runs a podcast called The Life Coach School for Life Coaches. And she has this method that I'm obsessed with called the model. Now, here, I'm going to throw in a little caveat and say that part of how I found her is because I was so impressed by one of her students that I'm actually receiving coaching from. So I wanted to look up who taught her. And then I found Brooke's podcast, and so much of what she talks about really resonated with me. And I love how she made these concepts so approachable. However, I want to make this clear because I did do some research on Brooke, and people got opinions. And so I want to make it clear that life coaching is an industry that is not really regulated. And so while the information can be great and valuable, the people presenting it can sometimes be flawed. And I'm of the mindset that because humans be humaning, sometimes we need to, again, just take what works for us and leave the rest. So with that, I'm going to do a quick distilled version of this method, which is CTFAR, circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. So our circumstances, which are the facts, the non-debatable elements of our lives, often shape our thoughts, which drive our feelings, which then control our actions and the results we achieve because of those actions. And Castillo believes that if we can learn to see our circumstances as neutral rather than letting them hold so much influence over us, then that will give way for us to be able to take more control of our thoughts. So for example, growing up low income is a non-debatable circumstance of my past. It is what it is. And for many people like me who grow up low income, we can often let that circumstance cloud our thoughts about money. So there's never enough of it to go around. It creates stress and drama. It's the root of all evil. So then because of these thoughts, we might then experience intense feelings and emotions around when we spend or get or talk about money. We might experience anxiety, overwhelm, frustration, anger, you name it. And because of those feelings, we take actions around money that are driven by those things. So if you feel anxious about having money because you feel like there's never enough to go around, you might feel compelled to spend it all right when you get it. But then the result we get from that action is that we don't have any money, which then leads back to that stress and anxiety, and the circle continues. So by looking at this method, the key to creating change for ourselves is understanding that our circumstances are not actually in the driver's seat of our thoughts and feelings. We are. So just because I grew up low income does not mean that I will be low income forever. Just like if you've had difficulty making friends in the past, that does not mean that you have to be friendless or without those deep quality relationships that you seek. Our circumstances are things that have happened to us, but they don't define us. But we have to be willing to understand the ways in which our circumstances have led us to believe what we believe in order to figure out how to produce more positive thoughts and feelings that then can bring about more productive actions and results. And this is where meditation will be a really beneficial tool. And if that term meditation turns you off, I think another great way to look at it is thought observation time. So when we look at circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, results, especially in the context of American culture, we have been raised to only care about the results. And in fact, that the results is where our self-worth and value as human beings lives. And so we only give ourselves permission to be happy or feel good or worthy when we have achieved a particular result. We say, I will only allow myself to be happy when I lose the weight. I will only allow myself to be happy when I nail that job. I will only allow myself to be happy when I have X amount of friends or followers. The list goes on. But if we choose to follow the model, it actually says that this way of thinking is not only not true, but that we have access to happiness and self-worth without those things, because those feelings are always available available to us. We can always choose to be happy regardless of our circumstance. And in fact, we are much more likely to reach our desired results when we prioritize working on our thinking and our feelings first. So when I was writing Eat Your Way to Self-Confidence, I was so fascinated by the research that I was being exposed to, because when we think about self-confidence, a lot of people believe that they need to be self-confident first, and then they can go do all of the things that confident people do. But the research was actually showing that in order to build your self-confidence, you actually need to take action first and not just wait around to be this self-confident person. That in order to be that person, you have to do the things that that person does. And so I think that that is such a powerful reminder that it's so important to take action, but at the same time, within the context of the model, that if your thoughts and your feelings are not in check, if you are thinking that you're a loser or that you're not interesting, and those thoughts are then creating those feelings of anxiety, that is actually what's hampering your ability to take action and be that self-confident person that you want to be. So again, just keeping in mind that to be that self-confident person that you want to be, it's about taking action first. But if you are struggling with taking action, then maybe we need to do some work on your thoughts and your feelings. I have to admit, this concept was a lot for me to wrap my head around at first. But if I'm being real with y'all, the big realization I'm having in 2024 is that everything I want in life is linked to my thinking. I've just come across so many books and articles and podcasts, and I've done research that are just making this so clear for me in this moment. And it's so crazy because when I look back at times where I really focused on what was going on in my mind and then fixed what was going on there, my quality of life improved so dramatically. It's insane. So now I'm honestly just learning how to really be more intentional with that this year. And, again, just observing and seeing what happens. So just to close out what doing meditation in this way has done for me, I swear to y'all, 2 weeks into doing this method, I had this crazy epiphany and totally realized who the jealous person was, shut that relationship down, and my life changed for the better drastically. And when I say I shut that relationship down, it's not as simple as I'm making it sound. And we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how to close out friendships that are no longer serving you. But this process at least allowed me to stop feeding them information about me that they would then always give me their negative opinions about. And I just didn't realize how much these negative opinions were impacting me. This is why I have a lot of respect for the saying, not everyone in your circle is in your corner, okay? Because it's so true. And I just love what meditation was able to do for me to figure out the people who, they live by this keep your friends close and your enemies closer mentality that I've truly never understood the value in. This might be my East Coast coming out, but can't we just agree to not like each other and keep it pushing? And it doesn't mean that we need to wish ill upon each other, right? But I just think we would all be so much better off if we were just honest about who we like and don't play games and just keep it moving. Life would be so much simpler. Anyway, with that, I have some homework, or we can call it self-work, for you this week. And that is to find some time to observe your thoughts. And the real key for this to actually be helpful to you is to not edit or censor yourself. Again, get repetitive, write what keeps coming into your mind, because this is your self-conscious trying to talk to you and communicate information that the logical side of your brain keeps disregarding because it can't find the connection. Everything is valid during this process, even if it seems hurtful or not polite. Again, as women, we are so focused on being polite, and I'm not saying we should should all be assholes. I'm just saying that the one person you should feel like you do not have to put on airs with is yourself. No one else is in your brain but you, so do not be afraid to really let out what's bothering you or constantly coming up for you. Even if it's a close friend or someone you love, if there's some, underlying tension, get real. Okay. And I would aim to do this thought observation work for at minimum 5 minutes every day for a week. You can obviously do it longer. You can do it for a longer time. You can keep doing it after a week. But this week period, I think, is a really solid amount of time to start because, in all honesty, slowing down to really observe your thinking, it can be shocking and painful and just a lot to take in. So I get it. But we really can't do the work needed to fix our thoughts and our feelings unless we're truly honest about where we're starting from and what's coming up for us. So observe your thoughts for a week, 5 minutes minimum, write down everything that comes to mind in a journal or on a sheet of paper, or you could type it out if that's easier for you. And again, remember that it is your divine right to have peace. And so if you do not feel that in your life, do not be afraid to ask yourself, what is getting in the way of that? And then what am I willing to do? What aligned action am I willing to take to lead me to my divine right? So if you're having trouble getting started, just ask yourself, what is getting in the way of my divine right to have peace in my life? And let your pen flow. This exercise is just for you. You don't have to show anyone, but, if you want to talk about it, what it brings up for you or any revelations you are having, remember that we have a Facebook community you can join and share. You can also message me on Twitter or Threads. And then just a reminder that doing this work takes time. American culture tells us that we need to go out and get healed tomorrow or it's a bust. And that's just not how this process works. I will say for me, it took about a year before I felt like I could meditate with a quiet mind, which was so fucking awesome. Like, I remember just sitting there and being like, oh my God, I don't have anything coming up for me because I really listened to myself. I took aligned action to deal with the people and the things that kept coming up. And then it was just unreal to experience divine peace for a moment. And it's funny, I love meditation. It does such magical things for me. And then I just always let life get in the way. And so I'm actually really trying to get back on that bandwagon because there just truly is nothing sweeter than experiencing that divine peace where you're just like, everything in life is good. Even just, it's not good all the time, but for this 10 minutes that I'm sitting here, I'm good. It's beautiful. So I am so excited to help you get to that place. It's definitely possible, and we're going to make it happen for you. All right, bestie, I'll see you next session. I'm out. If you are loving Real Talk Friend Therapy, don't forget to show us some love with a 5-star review wherever you are listening, and to join our Patreon to unlock bonus recordings, videos, private chats, and more.